Hello everyone, my name is Moko. Welcome to my second sketchbook video. Today's sketchbook video is going to be about this book, Stolen by the Wolves. It's by Lix Robinson. It's a Viking Omegaverse series that I believe currently has 2 books and 2 novellas out, with more to come. Picking up from our last sketchbook video, I actually finished filling out the page that we worked on last time. This is from Myths and Monsters by Beatrix Hollow. I added Pollux and a few other characters that appear throughout the series, as well as some text, and I really like how this one came out. This time I actually went ahead and sketched out the page that we're going to be drawing today ahead of time. That way I can cut out some of the extra time and just kind of focus on inking and coloring and kind of talking about what I've been reading and what I'm up to. So let's get started. For inking and sketching, I'm almost always using the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen and the 0.3 lead Staedtler mechanical pencil. So right off the bat, I guess you've probably noticed that I've added VO to this video. It was kind of on the list of things that I wanted to do to improve these sketchbook videos, and I kind of assumed that it was going to be something that I tackled further down the road, but as I was watching and kind of trying to decide how best to improve these videos, I watched a lot of other creators' sketchbook videos and kind of realized that the ones that hold my attention the most are the ones with the VO. It kind of gives you something to focus on while I'm drawing, and even if you kind of have it on in the background, sometimes the artist will mention things that they're doing or processes, etc., and it'll kind of bring you back into the video. It just gives you something to listen to other than kind of the generic, I guess, free music that I've got going on in the background there. So bear with me as I get more comfortable recording and kind of go through this learning process alongside, learning how to make my first videos and kind of what works for me. So this first character that I've been drawing here is Tamsin. In this series, she is basically the Viking equivalent of an Omega. And if you don't really know Omegaverse and what that means, I suggest you kind of look into it if it's something you're potentially interested in reading about. I'm not going to give a lesson on it here, but I really like the way that it's incorporated here into this story. I absolutely loved drawing her hair. Based on the cover, she has like a lot of volume in her hair, and it's really wavy and curly and this really beautiful orangey color. So I had a lot of fun inking the strands and kind of using like the brush pen alongside the thinner pens to kind of really get that volume in there. If I had one thing that I could improve about this first sketch, I do feel like I kind of drew her looking really young. She is young in the story. I believe she's like 18. But if you compare like this face that I'm drawing now and then kind of the sketch in the bottom left-hand corner, I like that one a little bit more because I feel like I made her look just a little bit more mature. But I do like how both of these first sketches turned out. Now, I've seen some artists do some pretty amazing things with these brush pens, kind of in that sort of comic style where they will fill in larger blocks of black ink to kind of accentuate the highlights and shadows. And I didn't do that here, but I'm really trying to kind of bust out the brush pen a little bit more. I did it in the cloak and in some of the outer outlines, and it does help, but I do want to gain some confidence in using that brush pen a little bit more often. Starting on the horse, this is Tamsin's horse Seinen. I actually went through Lix's Instagram to try to see if there was any photos of Seinen or drawings of Seinen, because Lix draws a lot of art and cover art for these books, and I was kind of hoping that there was going to be a piece of him. And I did actually find one early on that has him with this sort of tanned, I guess, I don't know horse coloring, but a sort of like tan blonde look to the horse, and so I mimicked that here. But Seinen is Tamsin's horse. She has a really cute relationship with him in the series. I always have like this worry that when there's a animal companion and a story filled with kind of like battle and war, etc., that we're gonna have something tragic happen to him, but thankfully nothing of the sort yet. Animal tragedies are like my number one fear in movies and books, and I know there's like 4 more books to go, so fingers crossed that he makes it through. But he definitely became a big part of my reasons why I enjoyed this series. Alright, so we're moving on to kind of swatching. I do end up skipping over a little bit of this. As I've mentioned before, these Copics that I have, I bought a set of 36. So they have these like A, B, C, D, E, F sets. They all have 36 markers in them, and I kind of just tried to pick the one that had the most variety and sort of pastels, and then a few of the darker colors. So I am working with sort of a limited palette here, and for the most part it tends to work. I just kind of let colors be lighter or darker than I would have picked if I had more selection. So I ended up going with sort of a light golden orange color for Tamsin's hair, and then because I didn't really have many other gold orange matching colors, a darker sort of scarlety orange for the shadows and volume. Ideally, eventually I will pick up another set. I've been kind of looking at the differences between the remaining sets, and I think this time I'll go for one more targeting the darker colors. That way I've hit the pastels in the first set, and then I have a little bit more range with the second set. During the first pages, I didn't really notice the lack of color selection as much. I was able to get away with a lot with like the blue skin tones and then the gray of Pollix's fur. But here, eventually I do kind of start to run into skin tone problems where I really only have a handful of really peachy light colors, and then that kind of barley beige color E11 to use as like a darker skin tone, which isn't really dark at all. So I might actually pick up this skin tone pack instead, just so that I can draw more variety of characters in the future. Okay, so as I started to block in her face tone here, I kind of noticed that it was bleeding. I don't really know why. The ink liner that I use here is supposed to be bleed proof, but I think the back side of this paper wasn't agreeing with it. For whatever reason, as I'm doing the VO for this, I noticed that I kind of skipped over coloring in the dress, but you know, it's just a lot of solid colors, and we have a lot of drawings to get through, so I figured I'd leave it. Here I'm waving because I did a cardigan swap between the few days that I was recording this, so yeah. Alright, on to coloring our horse. Again, mostly going with sort of this tan color. Horse lovers, you probably know the actual name for this coat color, but I do not, so I'm just going to call it tan here. He's got really pretty blonde hair that's really wavy, and I actually kind of just drew it to match Tamsin's hair because I really like the way the two of them look together. I haven't drawn horses in a very long time, and I had to look at a lot of reference just to get this one angle done. It's something that I want to study a bit more in the future, do some animal studies, and maybe do a whole sketchbook dedicated to animal studies, since I'm drawing a lot of monsters frequently, and that kind of knowledge comes in handy. I was able to basically just use 2 colors to get his hair done pretty much the same way that I did Tamsin's hair. Not much room for more depth and highlights when you only have 36 colors. A lot of the times here I will reach for the few light gray pens that I have in attempt to kind of broaden the color range that I have with just a light coat of gray over top when I don't have the markers available to do so. I really like how his nose came out here with the few layers of darker gray on top, and then the ear fur. Alright, so we're pretty much done with that one, and we're going to move on to the smaller portrait of Tamsin in the lower corner. Like I said before, I really like how this one came out, just because she looks a little bit older, and I don't often actually draw faces straight on like this. It can be a challenge, and sometimes feel a little bit more boring to me to draw, but I actually really enjoy the way that this one came out. I think something that's been difficult getting back into a sketchbook versus the digital art that I usually do is just kind of the size that I'm drawing at. I don't want to commit to a really big sketchbook because I feel like that becomes quite the slog to fill up the pages and feel satisfied with completing. But because this sketchbook is so small, most of the faces that I'm drawing are like an inch tall at the most, maybe 2 inches for this one, and like getting the features and the proper proportions at such a small size has been a huge challenge for me. When I typically work in digital, I can zoom in on a face so that it takes up my entire screen to work on all of the details of the eyebrows and the eyes and even the hair, and that's a lot easier for me to see and manage my detail level that way. Whereas here I kind of have like 1 inch to work with and gotta make it count. I think that was my biggest issue with the rest of this sketchbook spread. I definitely become less happy with it as I move on to the other 2 characters, really because I'm kind of squishing that third figure in Ivar, and it really is not the right proportions and didn't quite work out for me. But it is what it is. While I'm kind of wrapping this up, since it is very similar to the first sketch in terms of the colors I use, I figured I'd talk a little bit about what's coming up. This month, March of 2023, I'm actually kind of doing sort of a different month for me in terms of content with Patreon and what I post online on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to be traveling for 2 weeks, so I've kind of decided to focus this month mainly on sketchbook things and videos, and then while I'm traveling, I'm going to be drawing patrons' OCs and characters from books they've written or created, and I'm really excited for that. I got quite a few submissions amongst the group of patrons, and I've been kind of thinking about what everyone submitted and preparing what sort of supplies I'm bringing. I'll be drawing all of them in this sketchbook here as I travel through Japan for cherry blossom season. And then once I get back, I'll be able to share all of the sketches that I did for patrons in another upcoming sketchbook video. Kind of going to be my way to thank the patrons who have supported me thus far in this sort of new venture into content creation, and a way to kind of unwind at the same time while still providing something interesting to look at. I've got quite the variety lined up. We have someone's requested a sort of nightmare centaur, a few kitsunes, which is going to be thematically in line with my vacation, and then a Joker character, Joker/Jester character, and then we also have a gargoyle that I'm going to be drawing, and anything beyond that is probably going to be based on whatever I end up reading while on vacation. I have an 11-hour flight to Japan, so lots of time there, and then quite a few Shinkansen bullet train rides that I'm going to be taking, and those are anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours long, so plenty of time to sketch and unwind and just kind of enjoy my time traveling and still end up with something fun for patrons to check out at the end of the month. If it goes well, I think I actually kind of want to revisit this idea maybe once or twice a year. I think it would be a great, potentially new tier for patrons in the future to be able to kind of participate in occasional sketchbook or travel sketchbook videos by submitting content that they'd like to see in those videos, and I'll be able to kind of get acquainted with the stories that patrons have written or any of their original characters, things they enjoy. And it also kind of helps me spread a little bit of variety in what I draw as well, because there's so many unique characters and monsters that everyone enjoys that I get exposed to on a daily basis just by being around patrons and friends online. And it's really one of my goals this year to try drawing a greater variety of characters. Alright, this drawing. So the second half of this video didn't go really as planned. I was gonna consider cropping it out and not including it, but at the end of the day, I think it's more realistic to show the parts of the sketchbook that don't go as planned, things that you don't end up enjoying as much. It happens to all of us. You'll be really on a roll with a sketchbook spread, and then for whatever reason you hit that close to final drawing and everything feels like it starts to fall apart. And unfortunately that was this character for me. I don't really know what it is. I think I should have spent more time on the sketch here. I was at a point where I was like, okay, we gotta film this video, let's finish up the spread and let's get it done. And I knew that the face was bothering me, and then the proportions from the waist into the legs was also really squished in there and not quite right, and I knew it was gonna bother me, and in the back of my mind I was like, oh, I'm sure it's gonna be fine, I'll fix it. And I didn't fix it, but there are parts that I end up liking about this drawing, but for the most part it's kind of that part where I was like, I should have stopped and just kind of taken a little bit extra time to truly love this this sketch, but it didn't happen, and that's okay. It's kind of how sketchbooks go. I'm trying to be looser with accepting like flaws and things that I don't enjoy as much in my sketchbook, just because that's what a sketchbook's for. I spend so much time on my digital pieces fixing and making sure everything's how I want it to be, and I kind of want to just break away from that in my sketchbook series and embrace the flaws and just embrace kind of like jumping in and getting drawings done that I probably wouldn't have finished digitally, just because I would have seen the flaws and then maybe gotten frustrated with it. But the sketchbook gives me the chance to kind of just keep going, and I decided not to cut that out because it's good to see the reality of the sketchbook and not only show things that work. So here I sort of started off with that same lighter skin tone color. Based on the art that exists of these characters, Ivar is slightly darker skin tone than Tamsin is, but still pretty close. So I started off with the same colors I used for her, but eventually decided to layer the beige color over top of that to try to get a richer skin tone, because it's really pale and hard to see and really not quite matching how he looks on the cover art. That's another reason why I'm probably going to try to invest in some of the skin tone sets that Copic has for these Chow. I think they're called Chow marker set. Yeah. In the book, he's described in a scene as wearing sort of a transparent shirt, like a sheer transparent material shirt. So I kind of try to capture that here with the markers to see if that was something I could even pull off. So I started off layering the skin and then threw the color that I chose for the shirt over top of it, and I think it worked. Maybe if I had a few other lighter markers to blend in there, then I could kind of more convincingly show that transparent quality to the material, but for now I'm pretty happy with the attempt. Here I go with the darker beige skin tone that I mentioned before, just kind of trying to layer it over there to get a little bit more life in his skin. I think looking back at this, it's really the nose that's like really bothering me about this drawing. The pose that I found a reference for in my folder, so it's kind of like a chin up foreshortened face, and so you'll like technically see the underside of the nose and the nostrils. And I drew that here, but I don't think I convincingly finished off the bridge of his nose, so now it just kind of looks like a short nose. Oh well, lesson learned, I guess. Here I added a small little drawing of a wolfsbane flower. It's not very detailed, I just kind of like glanced at what they look like online, and they're like these really beautiful purpley blue, kind of remind me of like foxglove or hyacinth sort of flower, so I just wanted to fill this space in, similarly to how I filled in the other space with the shield, with something topical to the book. And they do have a lot of mention of wolfsbane, and it's kind of like ingrained with the story, so I threw a drawing of that here. As I'm kind of finishing this up, let me know how you've been feeling about these videos, if there's any way that I can improve or any sort of content that you'd like to see me try out with the sketchbook series, or even if there is a book that you read recently that you think would be a good fit for what I do here, and let me know and I'll check it out, and maybe I'll do a sketchbook session on it. It's been my kind of preferred method of reviewing and showing some love to the books that I'm currently reading. It's a nice way to unwind and kind of get all of my feelings out about the book that I just read in a quick little sketchbook page, which I do also like to do with full digital illustrations, but I can't unfortunately do it for every book that I read, so kind of giving a little bit of love to the books this way has been a lot of fun for me. Alright, so this last face here, this is Thrain. He's also in the group in this book. It's a polyamorous romance, so there's multiple love interests, and he is kind of the first one that we really learn about and encounter, and I wanted to kind of draw him sort of in battle with his teeth and kind of roaring. And I was looking for reference, and I actually found what I believe is a Teen Wolf screen capture, and sort of just like drew that but turned it into him. And I really just wanted to like learn how the mouth shape was looking and adding all that teeth in there. But I just think it's funny that you may actually recognize this if you watched Teen Wolf. I think it's Teen Wolf, I don't know. I didn't watch Teen Wolf, but if you recognize this pose, it's because I drew it from a screenshot. He also has this big fancy, I guess, brand or scar mark on his face that I don't know the full story behind yet. But I think it's really interesting and tried to get it fit in there. Overall, I tried to take some of the lessons that I learned from the first video and apply it to this video. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm filming slightly closer, and tried to cut down on some of the things that maybe might not be as interesting and speed up here and there during moments that might get redundant. It still did end up being, wow, I think about 30 minutes of filming time. I'm not entirely sure if that works for everyone in terms of how long you're willing to sit and watch sketchbook videos, but let me know if you do watch 30-minute sketching videos and what types usually hold your interest. Kind of last but not least, I wanted to mention and thank all of the people in my Discord. When I first started trying to record, I immediately sort of froze up and I felt my heart rate getting faster, and it's just really not something that I'm used to doing, hearing my voice and kind of talking to myself for a video. But everyone in the Discord was really nice and had a lot of tips and tricks that they use when they're recording themselves, and I kind of went to bed and then started anew the next day with all those tips and advice in my mind, and it was a lot easier. So thanks everyone. Thank you for all the tips that you shared. My Discord community is consistently always helping me through all these new things that I'm tackling and just being a really great support system. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so that you can see more of the videos as I release them. I am also Art of Moko on Instagram as well as Twitter, and you can find a lot of my digital art that I don't share here there as well. And then my Patreon, you can see early access for all of my digital sketchbooks, videos, as well as work in progress sketches that I don't share anywhere, and a few commission things. Oh, and also coloring book pages. I turn all of my digital illustrations into coloring book pages for the $5 tier. Alright, so here's the final spread. I did add a little wash of color in the background that I didn't show here, just because you can't really see it. I had a ton of fun, even with the flaws and the things that ended up bothering me. And I'm excited to do the next one. Well, I'll see you all next time. Thank you.